Hello YouTube, this is Morgan Airspeed Prime here at my next Korra review, and this is going to be my review for K206, The Sting, obviously episode 6 of Book 2 Spirits. So yeah, getting kind of into my general thoughts, I liked the episode, it was good. I think it was better than next week's episode simply because it had a bit of a resolution to it, while a lot of Peacekeepers was very much like left open, set up for this episode to kind of do more with. Some very interesting stuff happened in this episode in that nothing on the Southern Air Temple, nothing, one scene with Unalaq and the twins, one scene at the end with Korra, and then the whole focus of the episode really was on mainly Mako and Asami as the main characters, with kind of Varric supporting them, and then Varric also supporting Bolin, who is the kind of B plot of the story. So there's some like interesting stuff, and I thought the episode actually did a good job for basically the first episode of Korra that didn't have much, if any, Korra in it at all. Like, she was really only in it for like a couple of seconds at the end, so that's interesting that this is the first time the show has actually had an episode where Korra was basically not involved, really. And it worked. Like, Mako and Asami made for a good kind of main cast in this episode, with Bolin supporting and then little bits to keep the plot going along. Getting to more specifics, I'll get into the kind of minor stuff first. I suppose the cliffhanger thing, because it was the only part of Korra, like, whoa, that, I didn't expect that at all. You know, there's obviously already people like saying it's like a cliche, the whole amnesia story, but I think it's going to be much very interesting to see why they do it here, because this time it was caused by her being attacked by a spirit. She seems to not know who she is, and you know, is it like from the perspective of her being the Avatar? Is it just that literally she's like hit her head and can't remember, or is it something more spiritual, as in she has kind of lost who she is as the Avatar and needs to learn that from the other avatars again, which probably will be the case. Very interesting. She appears to have washed up on, I think it's meant to be the Crescent Island. It looks a little bit different now, obviously with the new animation, but I think it's Crescent Island where the Fire Sages are, where obviously Aang met Roku, and Aang then burned his staff in the first episode of Book 3. So I think that's where she is, or else it's some part of the Fire Nation. Either way, she seems to be where she needs to be, and it's an interesting setup, definitely. I was expecting, as you saw in my speculation video for this episode, that the episode would end with her meeting Juan, but it didn't. It ended up with her meeting the Fire Sages and not knowing who she is. So it really highlighted that beginning is going to have a pretty good job of setting up some stuff here before we get into that Juan story. So I think the thing is, we expected them to be like almost completely Korra focused, but at this stage they're looking like normal episodes that maybe bring Korra back into the forefront again, with Juan maybe being the last 7 minutes or something like that, and then Beginnings Part 2 as well. But interesting. Very interesting decision to do nothing on Air Temple Island. The fact, in a way I'm glad that, because they didn't really have anything for this episode, they didn't just do anything on the island, that they just, because it would have been annoying if they went back and again it wasn't Jinora. This time they just haven't gone back to them, so when they come back to them again it probably will be Jinora focused, and the plot will really go forward from there. Just an interesting decision that they didn't do anything there. One scene with Unalaq, that was interesting. He seemed to come out of the spirit world. Desna once again appears to be the twin that is kind of worried that their father's not telling them everything. So Eska again seems still a little bit upset about Bolin, but I think she's also starting to see that her father's not telling her everything. You know, he just walked out of the portal, they didn't know he was doing that, he's not telling them everything, and he's beginning to get a bit concerned about everything kind of falling apart a little bit for him, in that they say he's dead and that she was attacked by a dark spirit, and he seems to react to that in an unusual way, in that it doesn't appear that I think everyone suspects that he's probably in league with the spirits, but his reaction was interesting. He didn't like say either way if like I know what her actually being eaten by a spirit means, that she's not actually injured or anything like that. It's just she's gone somewhere else. Or does he actually believe that she's dead and his plan is kind of at risk now? That's going to be interesting when they come back to him. But yes, let's get into the other side of the story, the main parts. I suppose we got to Bolin. We saw him becoming a star for the first time, and the popularity instantly of Varric's movers. I loved the focus they put on the like episode of that show, Nuktuk and Ginger. The narration was brilliant. It just played up on that kind of stereotype of that type of show with the really cheesy announcer, tune in next week to find out if the hero will get out of this thing, the classic sort of thing. So I liked that, really did. And then Bolin actually did become a movie star, and he got money, and it appears to be going to his head a little bit, in that he expects Ginger to like him. He obviously kissed her when she didn't want to be kissed. There's that whole thing, which was definitely odd for Bolin, that I don't think this is fully him. I think they probably will keep the movie star thing going forward, but a key thing will be him getting away from Varric now that it's revealed what he's done. So I'm wondering if what they'll do with Bolin is something along the lines of have him as the star, find out what happens with Varric, and like Varric trying to like say, you won't be a star again if you don't have me. But it's not Varric who's the one that's popular for these movers. It's Bolin as the star of these things, so he can keep it going by himself. And if they do it that way, that will be really interesting to show that Bolin can stand up for himself, and that's his path. But it's interesting. He kind of has found what he's kind of good at. He seems to be a reasonably good actor for what they're asking him to do. I don't know, like, they're kind of setting up something with Mako and Bolin, that they're going to argue over something. Probably he's going to reveal to Bolin what Varric has done. Bolin doesn't want to believe it, and maybe there'll be an argument between the brothers. But I really wonder, like, what they're doing with Bolin now. That it's his finding himself arc. Is this what he's meant to do and stuff like this? It's interesting. Like, what exactly is this doing for the plot? Is obviously he's going to be famous now. Is Eska going to find out? There's all this sort of stuff. I still think they need to bring a little bit of seriousness into Bolin's side of the story. That's much needed now, I think. But linking the stories together, I thought was interesting, in that you had Mako and Bolin come together, and at the filming of the next episode, Mako found out about the remote detonators, that they're Varric's thing, and that led to the end of that side of the story. That was a really cool way of kind of tying in those two plots together. And then we get to the stars of this episode, Mako and Asami. Very interesting that they had just allowed those two to be the stars of this episode, and I think it worked for them, because especially Mako, I think, came out of this episode really well, minus the whole telling on Korra for doing something illegal, saying it's stupid, then immediately doing something illegal with Asami. I really hope that they bring that back, and that when Korra and Mako meet again, he understands why she felt the need to go against everyone, because that's exactly what he did. Korra, when she came up with the plan last episode, it was because no one was helping her, no one was listening to her, and she had to get anyone who would possibly listen to her on her side. The same happens in this episode with Mako. No one, not even Lin, not even the two officers, listen to him. So it's left for him and Asami to team up with whoever they can find, in this case Triple Threat Triads, and do it. They have to reference this, otherwise Mako comes across really just terrible for this episode for being a hypocrite. Obviously we see the friendship between Mako and Asami, that there's no real kind of hatred over the breakup. But then, almost out of nowhere, she's upset and she kisses Mako. He doesn't kiss back, which was interesting, I liked. And that I think that really said that he doesn't kind of think of Asami in that way anymore. She's a friend, but nothing more. And I just wonder what really was that there for. Yes, she was in a kind of emotional moment, but I just hope they don't do anything with that relationship. They don't need to bring it back. Because I think it's just bringing way too much drama into the show, because they're setting up so much stuff. Korra and Mako have broken up. Now they've put this Mako and Asami thing back in there. There's going to be some awkwardness between the two. They kind of seem to be setting up a Mako and Bolin kind of argument thing over Varric and the movie stuff. Like, is that going to be a thing? So, like, you could end up in a situation where, like, Mako is just alienated from the rest of the group if they go down that path. So that's why I'm worried that they don't need to bring Asami and Mako's relationship into things. I think they did it in such a way where it doesn't have to be a thing. Like if they just completely don't reference it again, it's not needed. Because I do think that Mako and Korra is the kind of end game relationship, because because it makes sense, But yeah, throughout the episode we see him like looking at pictures of him and Korra on a date, and then constantly being teased about breaking up with the Avatar. Like, what an idiot for doing that. And I think over the course of this episode, he doesn't specifically reference it, but we as like fans know that what he learned from this episode was that I think he learned what it's like to be in Korra's position. Be in a position where you need to do something, it's your duty to do something, but no one will like allow you to do that. And in that sense, Lynn came across really bad from this episode. Like, I know she's a beloved character, but that doesn't explain away the fact that she was incredibly like dismissive to Mako for the silly point of him just being a rookie. She wouldn't listen to him because he's the new guy, when he blatantly presents evidence to her and is the only one thinking outside the box on the whole thing. So she comes across really terribly from this, and she needs to, once she realizes what Mako has actually solved, acknowledge that, give him the promotions, apologize and stuff like that. That needs to happen. What else? Yeah, the whole plot around that, Asami's Future Industries is constantly getting battered and battered. None of the plans are working to get the company back up and running. And then turns out it's all been kind of planned by Varric. He's been using the triads to kind of take out like shipments and kind of further ruin Asami. Also, she would be forced into this kind of crazy deal to keep Future Industries running, but it's going to be under Varric's control, majority control. And then you get that scene where he walks in, they've just signed the contract, Asami's all happy because she doesn't know that Varric's behind it, and he knows. He walks in, Varric turns around and is just like, yes. And it really worked this time more than the Unalaq reveal, because he was presented as like blatantly like not a good guy really. You knew he was bad, just in what way. This guy, you wanted to think he was the good guy, and so when he actually turns around in the chair, he got the grin on his face and speaks seriously for the first time ever. It's just like, no, Varric, no, why did you do this? Like, it really feels like this kind of betrayal. Like, you put so much hope into this character and he's turned. It was very effective, even though it was obvious, I think, that it was him behind it all. It worked well how they actually portrayed it on screen. That was cool. I thought the triple threat triads were actually really effective in this episode. It was an interesting idea to like bring them back as kind of almost heroes, like they agreed to it, and more than just criminals. You really felt like that there was this kind of like friendship kind of forming between them. But no, they're the triads, they're the gangsters, they're behind it all. Some nice action scenes actually. Mako and Asami and the speedboat. Really got those two characters across really well. Gave them some much needed time on screen. Just wondering where exactly things are going now. He needs to find a little bit more evidence on Varric to kind of take him down, and stuff like this. Definitely, I think Asami, Bolin, Mako, their stories coming together with Varric. Something's going to go down there. While I think Korra's journey is going to be more alone. Maybe that's where Air Temple will be linked in, and stuff like that. But yeah, I'm much more positive about this episode than I was last week. even though if you saw listen to last week's podcast, I really changed my tone on the episode between my video review and the podcast, just because, you know, I actually got into discussing it with other people, and I saw a lot of little things in it that I really liked. Still think it's probably the weakest episode of the season, and this one still feels like it wasn't as strong as some of the other ones, but it's good. This was good. And I'm just so excited for the beginnings two-parter next week. Really excited. So just going to end it here before I go on too long. Let me know what you think in the comments of my review and also the episode itself. Avatar Online Podcast Korra Roundtable for this thing will be recorded and uploaded tomorrow, so definitely check that out for even more in-depth analysis and discussion on the episode than this review. New York Comic Con's coming up later on today, so I'm going to cover that for the site as best I can. Hopefully we'll get some news. There'll probably be spoilers for Beginnings Part 1 out there as well, so look out for that. I'm off to play Pokemon X some more now, which is great. So thanks for watching this video, and bye.